there, ladies and gentlemen, is why you never troll or heckle the #1 ranked player in anything. I'm talking football, I'm talking basketball, I'm talking baseball. If we go back to Bryce Harper in high school, going into college, he probably heard that overrated chant in every single game that he played before he made the majors, and then he got it in the majors as well. Well, look at him now, a two-time MVP, and I'm not saying that Drew Jones, the son of future Hall of Famer Andrew Jones, is going to be a two-time MVP, but us plebeians, us peasants chanting overrated at a superstar athlete, sometimes it's all in fun and it's all for a good time, but it does get a little bit ironic when they go yard on the very next pitch. But baseball is going to be all right. The future generation, they are very exciting to watch between Drew Jones, Bobby Witt Jr., Fernando Tatis Jr., Shohei Ohtani. Baseball, I know, is in complete disarray right now, but once we get a deal signed and the players are back on the field, I have a feeling that baseball is going to make a big-time comeback, even though fans are leaving in droves because they're tired of the millionaire versus billionaire debate, which I don't agree with because 71% of professional baseball players are not millionaires, but I guess because you have Max Scherzer speaking on behalf of everyone, they're holding everyone accountable for Max Scherzer making $45 million. So anyways, before we go off on a tangent on some weird rant, let's go ahead and break down the Mike Trout tweet that he put out yesterday, and it kind of broke baseball Twitter, and it made my little heart so happy because I was defeated. Then I went to see The Batman, and that kind of brought up my mood a little bit. If you have not seen The Batman, it is incredible. And then Mike Trout, he made me want to run through a wall. I was so hyped up because he had been completely silent. I thought that he was going to speak out on the day that Robert Manfred canceled games, but he didn't say anything, and I was almost disappointed because we know Mike Trout is Jesus in baseball cleats. That's how good he is. But when it comes to marketing himself in the game, he just likes to chill, and I'm not going to fault him for that. If that's the way that he wants to live his life, that's perfectly okay. But he could use his social media a little bit more often in regards to baseball, and he did that, and I could not be more proud of him. I'm happy for the game of baseball because he stood up for us. He said, I want to play, I love our game, but I know we need to get this CBA right. Instead of bargaining in good faith, MLB locked us out. Let's go! He goes on to say, instead of negotiating a fair deal, Rob, he points out Rob specifically, Rob canceled games. Players stand together for our game, for our fans, and for every player who comes after us. We owe it to the next generation. So even though Mike Trout has made his money through contract and sponsorships, he's trying to provide a positive path for the future generation who has been screwed over and over by the recent CBAs. And the same goes for Max Scherzer. He brought up that point as well. We'll talk about that in the clip in just a second. But good for Mike Trout. This got me hyped up. This kind of gave me some air under my wings all over again. I'm not too optimistic that a deal is going to get done because the two sides have met up today, the first time since the day of reckoning a few days ago. Hopefully we can get something in terms of momentum going, and I just want to say Tatis reshared this message from Mike Trout as well as a bunch of other superstars, so this resonated in the community. Mike Trout using his platform for the greater good. I really enjoyed it and it got me hyped up. If we move on over to a couple different players that also had some things to say, Wilson Contreras, the catcher of the Chicago Cubs, maybe the future DH of the Cubs, we have no idea. He put out this Instagram post. Union negotiator Bruce Myers said the players will fight for back pay and or the rescheduling of canceled games. Awesome, they should be doing that. Introducing yet another layer of conflict to this dispute. But the ramifications for players run deeper. For starters, the owners can outlast them because they're billionaires, obviously. April is typically a month of low attendance and revenue for many clubs, particularly those in colder climates. Local television contracts generally do not require clubs to issue rebates to their networks until about 25 games are missed, according to a source with knowledge of such deals. And the big money in the league's national television contracts comes from the postseason. So basically what Wilson is inferring from this graphic is that the owners are fine with missing the first month or two because it's cold and they generally lose money. They're going to make up all of that money anyways in the postseason, which is why they want 14 teams in the playoffs, because then they share all of that revenue and they are going to be making almost $1 billion in a single postseason if actually the 14-team playoff is introduced. So that was Wilson's perspective after Mike Trout, and then Jason Hayward went off. Jason Hayward, one of the smarter guys, one of the elder statesmen of Major League Baseball. Say what you want about his contract, say what you want about his skills, but this post is absolutely electric. The look on his face is a sigh of relief. He is referring to this face, Robert Manfred smiling at the press conference, which actually makes sense considering all along, I think Manfred's plan along with the owners was to delay and cancel games so they could save money in the early month of 2022. So I agree with this. He thought the players were about to accept the deal and we were going to start the season, which all along he didn't want to start on time. Numbers, rule changes, CBTs, Super 2s, league minimums, extended playoffs, pitch counts, shifts, international drafts, etc. He's saying that they brought all of this to the table on the last day, so the players had to scramble and think of other ways to say no without looking like the bad guy. And unfortunately, they looked like the bad guys to a lot of people because they'd rejected the final deal. All of these things and more put to the side from the last day of former CBA to the good faith. Extended deadline of March 1st, 2022 at 5 p.m. They, Manfred, and whoever signed up to follow have been operating with the intent to delay the season, period. Similar to the 2020 pandemic season, they drag things out because they have their ideal amount of games they hope we played during the season. They know the proposals they made were geared towards benefiting them significantly enough that if the players ever elected to accept the terms, it would be a big win for them and a huge loss for the current and future players of this game. Each time both sides went to the table, they chose to acknowledge bits and pieces of what needed to be discussed to delay and drag out the whole process. They continued to make offers they know were in the players' best interest to refuse, hoping both sides could continue to disagree and that they would get their goal of delaying the 2022 MLB season. Bottom line, they know the amount of games we need to play in order for them to profit. They view the first month of the season as debt. Season delayed, they meet their goals. As players, all of us make different amount of money each year. Regardless of the contract, we went into these negotiations in hope of actually discussing the game we thought they cared about. The outcome to this date has been one side and the players negotiating with ourselves because the other side wants the vision and they truly don't want to play the 162. That's the route they chose. Jason Hayward with the absolute mic drop. I want to give him a quick round of applause. And all of these players speaking out, it just shows that they have our backs. Their best interest is not only themselves and the future generation, but the fans as well, because the owners, I mean, this is probably commonsensical at this point. The owners do not care about us. They care about churning a profit, and that is it. They buy teams for tax rebates. They buy teams to be able to brag to their friends that they own they own the Chicago Cubs. They own the New York Mets. Steve Cohen, at least he's willing to put up money and invest in his team and spend $1 billion in free agency. So I like Steve Cohen. He's kind of coming around to me, but all of these other cheapskate billionaire owners, they rub me the wrong way. But that does it for today's video. I'm going to go ahead and roll some of the clips from the MLBPA press conference because ESPN did not show the entirety of it. So they showed all of Robert Manfred's madness, but they didn't show the MLBPA side. Just makes sense. Thank you guys for watching and enjoy.
That we came into these negotiations understanding that the landscape across the game has changed and that more young players more than ever are entering the game and producing at high levels than we've ever seen before. We as players wanted to address that and obviously raise their level of compensation up relative to league revenues so that better reflected that.
As well as, you know, we have been screaming for years about competition issues, and those are important to us. This is not just about shifting pieces of the pie around. This is about getting the game that we love to work and operate as best as it can and go out there and perform and let us focus on what we like to do, and that's compete.
Things that have happened over the course, specifically of this last CBA, things that have happened to different players that has made us outraged in certain situations that we absolutely have to have corrections, and that's why we feel necessary to be able to continue this fight.